Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the peak-to-peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
Wake up, you're far from home.
The song that you are currently listening to is, as of now, a podcast exclusive. This is Wake Up by Wren Running-rabbit. This was the first song that she ever wrote on guitar when she was 16 years old, and she first recorded the song when she was around 17 years old. Be sure to check her out at the Very Nice Brewing Company located at 20 East Lakeview Drive in Netherland, and sign up for her camp, Vagabond Outdoor Club. More details at the end of the podcast. This song was recorded by Andrew Lunsford.
And walk into the distance. See the snow upon the tree.
Hello, my name is Jamie Lammers, and welcome back to the Wednesday retrospective series of the Mountaineer Podcast. This time around, I have a very special edition for you guys, a Then and Now. I'm going to be airing the original interview that I did with a particular artist back a couple of years ago, and then I'm going to be airing a new interview that I did with the artist in order to promote something of theirs that is coming up. Just as a heads up, this next interview had some technical difficulties and I had to edit around some of the words, but the general gist of what this artist said should still be in the interview. So, do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
My name is Wren Running-rabbit, and I'm 26. I've been living up in the mountains above Boulder, off-grid, for pretty much my whole life.
And you had a show that you were about to perform when I interviewed you this time around, is that correct?
I do. October 8th at the Mill Site, which is in Ward, Colorado. 7 p.m. Just a solo performance, just me and my guitar, and a bunch of original songs that I've written over the years. So it's a collection of all of my tunes, which I'll be starting from, I don't know if I'll have it in an order from when I first began playing guitar and writing songs until now.
So what got you started in music in the first place, and how has your musical journey progressed over the years?
Well, aside from having musical parents, I had a piano in my house because my mom plays the piano. My dad plays the bass guitar, so I was around music most of the time growing up. They always had a little wind-up radio to hear whatever local music there was. And that's when I started playing piano. There wasn't much else to do up in the mountains. I didn't have a lot of neighbors and no Wi-Fi and no cell phone signal. So I just kept to myself and started playing a little bit of tunes on the piano, and my mom taught me a little bit of the beginning work of that. I had one lady named Jean Pless, who was a neighbor out here, and she had a baby Steinway piano in her house, and I could go there after school to hang out. And she would teach me all kinds of stuff, like taking care of plants and making tea, and one of the main takeaways is that she taught me how to build a chord on the piano out of 3 other notes. 3 notes make a chord all together. And so once she taught me that, then I was able to take it from there, and I started creating some chords, and from there little small tunes, and then I just expanded my skill from then on just because I practiced every day and I wanted to get better independently, and folks didn't have a lot of money to get music lessons, so I had to do it on my own.
Are there any particular inspirations that have influenced your style over the years?
Well, I was super inspired by a lot of our local musicians, Leftover Salmon, a whole bunch of bluegrass that came in this area, and the mountains especially is super fond of mountain bluegrass. And so that was the main, and then of course a bunch of the classic rock and roll, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Stevie Nicks, those introductory musical groups that I was introduced to as a kid. But now I listen to all kinds of stuff. I listen to Metallica in my truck pretty much all the time, and I love funk music, I love blues music, music, blues, I'm really drawn to and would like to go more into that realm of blues rock and maybe tying a little bit of bluegrass and blues together if I can figure out how.
You started writing songs around the time you learned chords for the first time, am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. Probably when I was 8 or 9.
What inspires you the most about being able to write songs for an audience?
I'm one of those people who, or I don't know if anyone else is like this, but every time the standing ovation happens for America's Got Talent, I turn to tears. And I think it's part of this feeling that I'm witnessing in the person who is up there on stage and giving the audience a part of them to be judged and criticized and whatever. But that part of them, they're so proud to be showing that it doesn't matter what kind of criticism or judgment they're going to get back. So it's similar for me, that feeling of here is what I am, here's what I bring to the table, here's how I'm going to show up, and getting feedback from that. Whether it is a standing ovation or whether it's a small child being like, oh my gosh, you sing so pretty, or whatever that feedback is, even if it's with a band like, yo dog, I need you to play more of this in the tune, which I don't have a lot of experience playing in a band at all. So it's mostly just me showing the world what I have to offer in this way. And I think that somehow lyric come to me easily. I'm a bit of a conduit for channeling that kind of thing. That same lady who taught me how to build a chord, we would go and walk her dog about a mile around the loop in our neighborhood. And along the way, she would just sing about the trees or the birds or the road or the whatever it was. And sometimes it didn't rhyme at all. And I remember one time saying, I don't think your song is very good. It doesn't rhyme. And the lady said, it doesn't matter. I'm opening my body up to receive messages from myself. This opening up of my own vocal vibration and allowing whatever possibly comes through that door to sing. And it's the same with poetry or with art or with whatever outlet you use that's creative to get what's on the inside outside. You're allowing yourself to open yourself up like a conduit so that things can flow. And she taught me how to flow with my music and with my words and to just keep on going until something turns out of it. She would sing about the same tree 5 times until she came up with a line about that tree that was just so suiting for the time and place and purpose of the tree, and you just bear with the process, and in the end, you're totally proud of it.
Is there anything that you hope audience members will be able to take away from your shows when they come and see you?
I definitely have a way of connecting to a very grounded experience. A lot of my songs are story-based. They're experiential. They're coming from an experience that I've actually had or a feeling or emotion that I've actually had to trigger that. They're not all super, some of them are bedtime-like songs, like Great for the End of the Night, Campfire Song. Those are the ones that really touch your soul, that pull your heartstrings, that really make the audience want to hone in on the words and really feel and try to hear what they mean through the song. But I also have great tunes that are a little bit more upbeat and they have a little bit of humor and can keep an audience going even through the loud parts of the evening. I don't have a whole album of that material, so I have to blend all of the tunes and all of the different styles of music I've come up with over the past 10, 15 years. I've played piano first and I started playing guitar later on in high school, so all of my very first original songs are on the piano. And when I was in, I think, 11th grade, which was about 10 years ago now, maybe a little more, I picked up the guitar on one of my travels and started playing the guitar because it was easier to bring with me than the piano was. And these experiences I like to share with the audience. That's what they will be attached to most, and maybe not necessarily how great the voice is or how great the guitar is, but the lyrics are trying to pinpoint and hone in on in my expertise.
Is there anything else about your music that you'd like to add before we travel through time?
I'd say that my music is down to earth. It's not quite for the rowdy audience, but it's definitely for an audience who is appreciative of some good, solid, earth-like music. I come from a Native American background, so a lot of my songs are hand in hand with some of our spiritual belief systems of being earth-centered and grounded, and 4 elements and things like that, but it's not a spiritual experience by any means. And I mostly play out just so that I can connect with people and network. I want to meet my audience. I want them to come up to me and ask questions about my work. I want to be asked about other opportunities that may be available to me. And I'll probably have a little bit of my own artwork displaying there also. I do leather work and I do some painting also and some jewelry. So I'll probably have a small little side table set up with some of my wares. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that might be significant to add, and I'm not thinking anything off the top of my head. I don't have any gigs coming up after this one that I can let you know of, unfortunately.
That interview was originally conducted on September 28, 2022. Now, let's travel forward in time to June 18, 2024, and see how Ella is doing now. Keep in mind, there are some technical difficulties here as well, as often the first word that Ella says will be cut off for whatever reason. So sorry about the consistent technical difficulties in these interviews, but hopefully it's still listenable. Now, let's have some reintroductions.
My name is Ella Wren Running-rabbit.
And you're having another performance very soon, huh?
Yeah, so I'm a singer-songwriter, play guitar, and I write all of my own original songs. And so I perform them every once in a while. I'm not super active in performing all the time, so it is special to have shows in our local hometown, like Netherland, and at Very Nice Brewing Company. So I've got a gig on July 7th, and then I've got one later in August there also. And I'll be displaying my art as well.
Last time we spoke, you talked about having your art at the mill site in Gig. Did you end up having that art there?
Yep. I had a little table where I had some of my handmade leather bags and lighter cases and some jewelry. I've got a whole bunch of little knickknacks that I like to sell. Postcards, stationery, with my own art.
I wanted to be a little more expansive in this interview, considering that I already asked about her background in the previous one, and I am so glad that I did. I've surprised myself with some of the questions that I asked here, and I am so glad that Ella decided to take the leap with me and answer some of these questions. The first one that I decided to ask was, how long has art been a part of your life, and specifically, how long has leather making been something that you've really been interested in?
Well, about 5 years ago, I took on an apprenticeship with an elder, and he's passed away since, I think it was October in 2021, I think, or 2020. I can't remember the exact date that he passed away, but I traveled with him for a number of years to these different events, and these events were primitive reenactment events called the Rendezvous, and it was reenacting the fur trade era, so years 1640 to 1840, very specifically in North America. So that was expansion westward of all of these fur trappers and traders and different people who wanted to settle and find land further west in the Americas. And so these rendezvous were basically gatherings where all the different kinds of people that were expanding westward, the Native Americans, the settlers, the free trappers, all of the fur trading companies that came from Ireland and from different places of Europe, Germany and all that, they would all gather neutral ground, and they would trade and barter all of the supplies that they had gathered and the supplies that they needed for the coming year. Super cool because you're reenacting a whole bunch of primitive skills, and in that are all these very specialized arts and trades that came specifically from that era. And leather was a huge medium that people used for all kinds of things, not only for clothing. They could use the tendons of the animals to make rawhide and glue, and they just used every part of the animal. And so the skin of the leather, they used that for all kinds of things too. Traveling with this man, his name was Lee Fears. We all called him Hombre because his leather company is called Hombre Leather. And his motto was trample the weak and hurdle the dead. He's kind of a old badass cop from Montana from way back in the day. Anyway, he taught me all about leather and leather working and sewing leather and all the tricks to making it easy. So sometimes leather is really tough to sew and work with. There's all different varieties of leather, like vegetable tan leather versus brain tan leather versus rawhide. And there's all these different varieties of leather that come from different stages of the tanning process, and they come from different animals or different parts of the animal. So it's a whole trade that I got to learn over a couple of years with this old man.
At this point, I asked when she started getting into painting as well, because I actually assumed that leather making was a generally new venture in her life.
Well, generally it's not. not because I'm Native American, and so leather has been incorporated into my life forever. I've been sewing pieces of leather together to make little medicine bags with my dad ever since I was like 4. And I come from a whole family of creatives, so that's where the painting comes in. My great-grandmother, Janis Running-rabbit, you can check out her website, artist webpage. She was an artist out in Oklahoma, and she had several art galleries and was an artist and painter and potter and jeweler, silversmither for her whole life. And my dad was an artist in turn. He learned a lot of Native American arts from her. She predominantly did Native American artwork and Native American painting. And so growing up with that influence, my dad was always making art around me. And so in turn, I was practicing practically every medium as I grew up. So I can't really say that any one of my craft is coming from any one time period of my life. It's something that I've been practicing forever. Same with music.
So at this point, I corrected myself to say that it wasn't that the leather making was a new venture in her life. It was just that the elder that she learned from was able to teach her new concepts that she was able to add on to her learnings.
Well, I'm excited to talk about the evolution of the leather working process because it went from just stitching little medicine bags and sewing beads on the leather for color or things like that to then apprenticing with this elder who taught me even more and passed down a lot more skills to then most recently getting passed down a whole load of leather working tools from my boyfriend's dad. And so he gave me a whole bunch of these leather stamps. And then my granddad from my mom's side, when he passed away, he gave me all his leather stamps. And last year for my birthday, my great uncle gave me leather stamps that he used when he was in high school. So the belts and the guitar straps that I'm making right now and the bags and the hat bands and the bracelets and those things are now all stamped with new patterns that I've recently come up with that are a collaboration of my mandala work, which is deriving from the painting and the drawing. That's what I draw. I paint and draw mandala. And so now I get to transfer the same idea of painting a mandala onto the leather with all of these stamps that I now have. So my whole evolution as an artist is really changing and growing because of this leather, these gifts of leather tools that I've received over the last few years.
So it's not that leather making is new for you, it's just that now you have a lot more tools at your disposal to really dive into it.
Yeah, exactly. Now I have loads of tools and loads of different kinds of leather, and I have knowledge now to work and develop with that leather and come up with cool things to make that I can actually expand to being more of an artist. And I've always been an artist. I've always practiced art. I've always come up with things and people have always been like, wow, you're an artist. To me, generally being an artist in this world is like someone who's actually making money being an artist. And I've never made money being an artist. So now having all these tools and all these things gives me a lot of potential to actually follow a huge passion and not be so fearful of the fact that only being able to have one medium or one thing that you make, you can sell that one thing, right? But if you have the potential to make all of these things and hone in with all of them, then your potential expands that much more.
There was something else that I couldn't help but wonder about, and this one I was a bit more hesitant to ask because I didn't want to make this the main point. But you mentioned that you have Native American heritage in the last interview, and so how has that been an influence in the art that you make, the music that you write, and your daily life in general?
Yeah, good question. You know, what is the Native American religion? What is that? It's earth-centered. It's kind of hard to describe the spirituality that ties along with my life due to me being Native American, and because of that, becoming a musician and an artist with a heavy Native influence. I grew up in ceremony a lot. My dad, he does sweat lodge ceremonies, and when I was 13, I had a coming of age ceremony. And so we would sing songs in the sweat lodge and in the ceremonies. And we would come up and make gifts or make things that were representative of our prayers. Or like a dream catcher, for example, is something we would make and we hang it in the window above our bed and it catches the bad dreams. And so there is a lot of these spiritual components and aspects that is the reason why my culture, our culture, the Native culture began to make music and began to make art. A lot of it was a symbol or had a meaning, or the drum beat was not just a sound, it was the actual heartbeat, the heartbeat of the earth that we were making collaboratively together. So carrying that forward into my everyday life, I am someone who does try to be conscious of the things that make life possible, which for the Native Americans, that's the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water. You take one of those elements away, we would not be able to live. So being mindful of water consumption, being mindful of waste, and just think about these things. And I'm not sure exactly with my art and my music is really coming from a place of healing for me. I'm not just singing because it sounds good. I'm not just playing because it sounds good. I have meaning behind every piece of work that I do. And that meaning is playing forward into gratitude or into prayer or into just thanks for the earth or for what I have or for the water. I have songs that are very specific for the water, very specific for the animals and living here with them. And with my art, the mandala is the representation to me of the medicine wheel, the 4 direction sign. I'm working in a circle and I'm making a petal point to each direction. Each direction is significant to a specific element. And the colors that I use may tie in with a chakra or to a certain feeling or emotion, or just there's all sorts of meaning behind it for me. And that is because I'm Native. I'm not sure if I would put so much of that intention into my music and art if I didn't have that influence of spirituality and ceremony and putting intention behind things that we create with our hands, saying, I'm making this birthday gift for someone. I come from a pretty poor family. We didn't have a lot of money to buy cool birthday gifts for my friends, so I always make them a gift. And yeah, there's a lot of intention behind it for me. And that's part of the reason why I don't play out so much, is because it starts to lose that authentic intention that I have behind each thing.
There was a question that was genuinely nagging at the back of my mind, something I couldn't help but be curious about, and that is, how often do people put the Native American aspect of your artistry as the forefront, as the primary thing that they want you to be known for? And how much does that bother you, if at all?
Well, it's interesting because it's kind of a fine line that you can walk. You definitely see people out there who are promoting Native American culture in a really beautiful way. And I also see people promoting Native American culture as a fad. And that goes for a lot of different things in this world. There's a lot of different fads out there that are really coming from a really authentic means of promoting some kind of culture. And all of a sudden it becomes this fad that everybody is like, is it cultural appropriation for the natives when white girls wear the Tonka moccasin boots and wear feather earrings and have tribal tattoos when they're not Native? I don't know. I could really care less, honestly. I mean, if someone is like truly provocatively being like that to be offensive, you can tell most of the time. Sometimes people are just really attached to their style and really relate to that style, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, in my opinion. It's not cultural appropriation to me. Personally, I am someone who, my last name is Running-rabbit. I kind of flaunt it just by my name. And I don't go around and wear buckskins all the time. I do have buckskins that I made. I do have brain tan that I made. I do wear moccasins on a daily basis, but I look white. I have bright blue eyes and blondish hair, and so it's when people look at me, they don't look and see Native American right away until they learn my name and they look at the style of music and art that I have, and then they're like, oh, okay, that's the influence. She has a huge Native American influence. But at the same time, there's people from the res who make all of these fake-ass Native American art pieces because they're just selling to tourists who want to take home a memento of the res, and that's not necessarily unauthentic, but to me, those things were made with an intention and prayer originally. And to mass produce them just to make money is kind of annoying to me. But look at them. There are people on the res, my family, technically, whatever, doing it to make a living. So how could I be frustrated at that? That's an interesting topic.
The conversation reminded me of a recent episode of a show called The Brokenwood Mysteries, specifically Season 10, Episode 2, Day of the Dead, where a New Zealand town puts on a Day of the Dead festival, and a man with Mexican heritage who is part of the town council is not very happy about this because they're making a profit off of this festival, which isn't even being held at the right time of the year. However, in his own way, he starts to become homesick once he sees all of the different festivities going on, all the costumes that people wear, and the actual festival itself. So it's an interesting line, I think, in regards to what is authentic and what is not in regards to cultural appropriation. And I thought it was a really interesting topic to talk about, and it was interesting hearing her perspective on that.
I just think it boils down to genuine authenticity. Like, are you authentically doing it for the cultural purpose of it, for your intention, your prayers? I mean, it's not unauthentic for someone who really needs money to kind of mass produce the dream catcher, for example, and maybe they do put an ounce of intention in every single dream catcher they sell. Maybe they do. And the person buying it, on top of that, could be giving it as a gift to someone, which adds even more intention to it.
There was something else I was curious about, because I felt like not only had Ella immersed herself in a native background, but she had also been immersed in certain Western ideals of musicality, particularly with the chords that somebody taught her from a young age. At least that's where my mind went initially, and so I asked her if she felt that influence from both sides throughout the course of her life.
Kind of. I'm not sure if I would consider, to me, the Western learning, I would have had to go to music school, art school. That's like the Western medicine of art and music. Having the pleasure to have a neighbor who just knew how to play some chords, and she showed them to me one day, or Bear, who lives out in Ward, Mud Bear, he plays music around every once in a while. I mean, I give him a load of credit for a lot of the musical chords that I learned. And that is still, Ward, Colorado is a very tribal town. You know, we really take care of each other. We know what life means because it's rough living up there. There's not a lot of resources. And the learning from those people were, I mean, that's kind of a tribal mentality. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure how to answer your question fully.
It was here that I realized that she was right, that it really wasn't necessarily somebody forcing Western ideals on her. It was essentially just certain ideals of music that she learned from two different sources, and they combined in a certain way, and that's okay. It wasn't a fully Western perspective of music, and it wasn't a fully native perspective of music, and I thought that was very interesting. Something that I end up asking all of my guests at this point, whether they're musicians or businessmen or filmmakers, is what do you hope that people take away from what you make?
You know, there's musicians out there, and I can imagine seeing myself as one of them. And they have an ear for the kind of music that people want to listen to. And man, they write some great music because they have this quality to them that allows them to know the kind of beats that the best songs are at, and to write songs that follow those high upbeat whatevers, and people get into that reggae vibe or that bluegrass vibe with the high whatever. And of course there's little branches of bluegrass where it's more folk or more country or more whatever, right? But musicians, they can put themselves into those categories and say, oh, I'm a jazz band artist. And that's like their vibe. And they really vibe with jazz. And jazz just sinks to their bones. And maybe they can jump around and they go play some real good blues. And they go around and play some really good bluegrass. And they want people to view them as a bluegrass player or a jazz band player. And I have a hard time viewing myself as a musician or a artist or a whatever. I have a hard time deciding for myself what I want people to view, you know, but that's kind of the point, is I'm someone who is a jack of all trades. I don't want to be confined to being the one person. Some people are like that one person. Not that they don't practice a whole bunch of other things, but everybody knows them as that. And I have a hard time being considered just a musician or just an artist or just someone who installs solar or just someone who practices survival skills. Or we have all these labels that just really feed our ego. And not that having labels is bad. Sometimes labels really, really help us grow as people. Even as something as figuring out that maybe you have a small disability and being like, oh my God, I'm ADD. I'm so ADHD or I'm so whatever, that it makes sense, right? So it's helping. But I also fear that too much of that builds our ego so much that we kind of forget how well-rounded we could be because we're so focused on being the one thing.
So essentially you feel that you are multifaceted and you don't want people to just put you in one singular box.
Yeah. But it seems people want to know what box you're in. Like when you grow up, people want you to put you in a box sometimes. What are you going to be when you grow up? That's a box. Are you going to do anything with your art? Are you going to do anything with your music? Well, like, what do you mean? Do I want to be a musician? Do I want to be an artist? What does that really? I'm just Ella. I'm just practicing every passion that inspires me. And that's what I want to be promoted as just someone who practices things and passions and inspires people to follow their passions and not put themselves in a box and confine themselves to being one kind of person. To be open-minded to being all the kind of people you could be. And that's why I work with kids, because they need to be inspired to not live in a box. And school systems put kids in a damn box.
Even though there was something else that we wanted to promote for this podcast, which we'll get into in a second, I genuinely didn't realize that Ella worked with kids, so I asked her about her background working with kids.
Yeah, so I teach outdoor wilderness survival skills and have for the past 10 years. So my art and my music is really just my side hobby. I've been doing that for a long time. I just started my own company called Vagabond Outdoor Club, and I'm partnering with a local business in Netherlands called Dino Moves Gym, and we are creating a summer camp. And that's basically how I'm working with kids this summer. In the past years, I've had my own summer camp based out of Ward for people who live along the Peak to Peak. I've also worked for Calwood. I've worked for Teens Inc. And I graduated out of Watershed School, which is a whole bunch of outdoor leadership-based kind of thing. So yeah, outdoor leadership stuff is my strong suit. It's what I love. If I were to label myself as something, it would probably be something like that, outdoor enthusiast.
And in the last interview, you said you were 26. Are you 27 now or 28?
Yep, 28.
And I'm curious, over the last 2-ish years since we last talked, how do you think you've grown as a person as a whole?
I think I've grown a lot as a person. It's really scary trying to start a business, especially when living is so expensive in Boulder County. And starting a business requires a lot of time and a lot of thought and energy into making everything public, like the website and the Instagram page and the Facebook and making the email list and really solidifying everything. And it's been a challenging process to stay motivated because you need more time than you have if you're also trying to work another job alongside of it, which is pretty much mandatory living in Boulder County because it's so expensive here. And so I've just been learning how to keep my head straight and how to stay motivated and positive through a process that is uncertain, and you have a lot of belief that it is going to work and things are going to work out, and then some things will throw you for a swing or some other thing in your life will happen or you have to take a pause. And it's just really hard sometimes to keep your morale up through all of these challenges. And one thing that I've learned the most is to just really, really believe in yourself. And if you don't believe in it, it's not going to work. That's how magic is. If you don't believe it, well, it's not going to happen. And how do you believe in yourself when things are not totally flowing, or you're running into all these challenges, or you're going through such a huge learning curve that you're like, wow, I'm just getting slapped in the face left and right. How do I hold compassion for myself? How do I hold empathy for what I'm going through? And how do I not give up because it's hard, or all of these things? And it's a serious practice that we have to instill, that I have had to instill every day, a mindfulness practice of just reestablishing what my goal is, reestablishing where I'm at in the process of the goal, and getting my vibrations back into a neutral level. I've been hosting a wellness hour once a month here at the gym. We'll bring in people and do yin yoga, or we'll do a sound healing session with our friend who has 7 sound tools. We'll do guided meditation. It's just for an hour, and we'll choose one thing to practice. And that's my effort to promote to the community that we need to be instilling practices in our life that help remind us that we are in control of our life and that we don't have to be completely guided by all of these emotional feelings that we have. And this is a constant reminder. It helps us to be conscious and to be out of that box that we so eagerly put ourselves in every day, even by living on autopilot. Getting out of that autopilot and being really present, if you're really present, you can be sad, but you also are like, okay, but I'm physically okay. Here are the steps that I need to get me there. Maybe they're hard, maybe they're not, but here you don't have to be completely devastated by everything. So that's been a huge growing part for me over these last few years, starting this business and growing up the courage and to believe in myself enough that I have it in me to not give up on myself, essentially, because the process is something that I've never done before. And going through a curve of learning as big as this is sometimes it is always really challenging. Thank you, Jamie. I'm pretty eager. I'm an eager beaver to tell the world about what I'm doing, and summer camp is meaning the world to me right now, and we're hardly having any sign-ups, so as much promotion as I can get for that is definitely so amazing. And all the work that you're doing is inspiring, and we need people like you to promote and to find inspiration in us. I mean, that's you reaching out to me is an asset because it's helping inspire me to keep going. Like what I just said, finding these things that will help me not give up on myself. So thank you.
So just as a double checker though, you're looking for more people to sign up for Vagabond this summer?
Yeah. I started it the beginning of this month. We have some kids signing up for next week on Wednesday. The schedule for Monday, we're doing wilderness survival stuff. For Tuesday, we're painting a mural here. We're working on it all summer. And then Wednesday, we're making coffee can ice cream and pizza. Yeah, so I've got a whole schedule on my website and all that jazz that has things for every day. I don't have July posted yet, but...
So can people still go online and sign up for the camp themselves?
People can go to the website and sign up and reserve a spot during the week. They can also just drop in. I'm here at the gym from 8:30 to 10:30 for anybody who may need to drop in. And that's someone's like, oh man, I can't find a babysitter for today. Well, they could come to Dino Moves and then they could hang out with me and we'll go climbing. We'll go up to Mud Lake and learn survival stuff, or we can work on the mural or make a piñata or whatever.
Thank you so much to Ella for coming on board and joining us for the podcast twice. It was great hearing how you were then and how you are now, and I'm excited to see how you progress as a person and an artist. If you want to see her perform live and sell her art, you can check her out at the Very Nice Brewing Company, located at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Netherland on Sunday, July 7th, 2024, starting at 5 p.m. You can also sign up your kid for Vagabond Outdoor Club now between June and August this year on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 8:30 to 4:30. It hosts kids age 7 to 11, and it begins and ends at Dino Moves Gym in Netherland, Colorado. For more information about how to sign up, visit vagabondoutdoorclub.com. That's all one word. Contact Ella at 720-412-8826 or at vagabondhikersclub@gmail.com, or check out their Instagram and Facebook page for more information. Also be sure to check out the original Music of the Mountains article that I wrote for Ella Wren Running-rabbit to promote her show back in the October 6, 2022 edition of The Mountain Ear. Remember, if you want to be interviewed for the podcast or you want to air your advertising for the podcast, email me at media@themountaineer.com and we'll set something up for you. The song that you are currently listening to is called Not Better Off, and it is currently a podcast exclusive. It was written and performed by Ella Wren Running-rabbit, and it is the most recent song she's written and recorded. It was recorded by Andrew Lunsford and with the help of Black Dog in Eldora. Be sure to check her out live at the Very Nice Brewing Company, located at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Netherland, and sign your kid up today for her camp, Vagabond Outdoor Club.
Bounty on your head, I don't think you keep that company. But that company you seek was way more than you need. And sometimes things don't go as planned, and you never thought you'd have to deal with the task at hand. But don't put yourself in a well. You'll be looking up.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.